Hello, good morning. Welcome to our webinar entitled Adapt to the Changes in Radiotherapy. My name is Mary Napolitano, and I am one of the product managers for Adaptivo. So let's go over a bit of housekeeping before we get started. Today's webinar will be recorded. Please enter any questions that you may have in the GoToMeeting dialog box. I will answer all questions at the end of the presentation. Standard Imaging is based in Middleton, Wisconsin, and was founded in 1989. At Standard Imaging, we design and manufacture a full suite of QA products. So how specifically can Adaptivo dosimetry software assist clinical users in flagging or triggering when a patient plan will need to be adapted? The changes will more typically be thought of as changes in patient anatomy, but one should not neglect to consider systematic or large single fraction setup errors or beam delivery variation. Before I focus on some case studies, I will provide a brief overview of the modules in Adaptivo. So there are 3 modules: pre-treatment, during treatment 2D in Vivo, which is and during treatment 3D, which we refer to as adaptive. I have cases to share later showing use of both the 2D in Vivo and 3D adaptive modules being used to determine if replan is required. So the pre-treatment module uses the portal imager, verifies plan delivery, and then has an automated comparison to calculated predicted images, automated notification of the results, and report generation. And so as you can see here in the diagram, it's just a direct portal image measurement. The second module also relies upon use of the portal image, but in this case, the images are acquired as part of the regular treatment session, and so the patient and the couch are incorporated into the predicted image as well as the measured image. The predicted versus measured image is analyzed using gamma analysis. In addition, the first fraction images or reference image is compared to each following fraction and also analyzed using gamma analysis. Just as in the pre-treatment module, automatic notification occurs based on pre-configured gamma pass rates, and reports, of course, are generated. Most often, physicists focus on this module as determining setup or delivery errors for a specific day. When there's an independent method in place to check setup, additional training can occur if issues are noticed for specific types of cases. Clinics report increases in quality of day-to-day treatment setup when using Adaptivo. One can argue that just because a process exists and is in place to check daily variation, quality improves. This sort of usage, which improves treatment quality, I would argue, is not using this particular module to adapt to change. But trending and weekly average analysis may provide indication for triggering replanning. To illustrate the types of metrics available, I have a few screenshots I'd like to share. So the pre-treatment, so the in vivo module will be utilized to trigger adapting the plan. So the gamma-based alerts are we use what are called chiclets to designate the gamma pass rates. And so I thought I would start with showing you what a chiclet is, because it's a brand of gum that I don't believe is sold anymore. And if some of you are young that are listening, you might not know what a chiclet is. So here's a picture of a pile of chiclets gum in different flavors. On our dashboard as well, we have gamma pass rate chiclets with green for pass, yellow for warn, and red for fail. Here you see the chiclets for each fraction for 2 patient plans. For the top patient, for the first 20 fractions, the gamma pass rate was in the warning level on 2 of the days, but the weekly averages, designated in the gray for this portion of the treatment, were all in the passing range. The next patient, which I'm just showing the chiclets below, begins well, but then by fraction 8 is consistently failing. There could be numerous causes for such an occurrence, but one could be changes in patient anatomy. One can move deeper in the plan to explore more of the beam details in depth. So reviews such as gamma maps by beam with gamma pass rates specified, and this screenshot's rather small, but these are the gamma pass rates that you see in this area for each beam for each fraction, are specified, as well as profile comparisons. In addition, you can see trending details. So while the numeric gamma pass rates per beam and per fraction is useful, the trend curves I think are really useful for reviewing the data. This sample data we received from a clinic, and I don't know the clinical details for this particular example. My intent with this slide is to provide some background on tools that we can use for review of the daily EPID panel measurements and indicators that are needed to adapt the plan should you want to explore further. We are considering other metrics that may be helpful in determining when to consider replanning. So the next module, the adaptive module, was clearly built to focus on flagging when one should adapt the plan. A 3D dose analysis comparison is made between the TPS dose and dose calculated using a perturbation method. Unlike the in vivo module, which uses the EPID images, this module uses the cone beam CT in order to base the daily anatomical changes. The process I'm going to describe is fully automated after a new treatment has been detected. So emerge CT is created from the cone beam CT with the planning CT, filling in missing portions if necessary. The CT calibration from the planning CT is applied from the cone beam CT. The planning contours are deformed or warped onto the cone beam CT, and then the dose is calculated. The inverse of the deformation is then used to map the daily dose back to the planning CT. This comparison then can be reviewed using the daily as well as cumulative dose volume histograms. Of course, automated notifications are based on the disease type. Alerts shall be generated for tumor volumes and organs at risk based on the adaptive 3D calculated daily dose. And of course, I don't think I have it listed here, but reports are generated as well. So after the automated analysis occurs, there are a number of features available for review and notification, and I wanted to go into just a little more detail on those. So similarly for the in vivo module, there are active alerts on the dashboard or email alerts that can be configured. The dashboard also contains the Dvh-based alerts. So these are the similar complement to the chiclets, which are used to report the gamma pass rates for in vivo. These are specified by a region of interest. And the DVH results are specified per plan, for example, or daily or cumulative. And you can see the three different color codings here for each of those. As well, one can, select from the dashboard these alerts and be taken directly into the plan to review the DVH in detail for all of the ROIs, as well as go to the specific ROI and look at features such as the trends for the treatment dose point, the cumulative dose point, the displacement in each direction, and the volume displacement as a function of fraction. So patient bodies are not rigid, and so it's important to have visibility into the anatomical changes that are occurring between or during treatment. And these two modules do just that. Because the anatomy may deform between or during the treatment, tumor shrinkage may occur, patient weight loss, etc. Variation from the planned dose may also be introduced from variability in the daily machine behavior or patient setup. All of these aspects must be considered relative to the cumulative dose over the course of the treatment. For example, one of the cases I have is an example of whether a one-day or multi-day alignment issue will require adjustment to meet the prescription dose. So here's some screenshots from the first case study I would like to share with you. It's lung and mediastinum. This case was first presented in more detail by Brian Pomager during a Standard Imaging sponsored webinar last summer. The recording should still be available on our website if you want to review that case in more detail. This case was evaluated using the in vivo module, so that's where I wanted to begin. One can see from the dashboard chiclets showing the passing gamma criteria when compared for both the reference fraction and the predicted image. One can see in the beginning with up until fraction 31 that daily alerts did not occur for this particular patient. And then starting along about fraction 31, several daily alerts occurred, followed by a failure. And then, as I mentioned before, in gray, these are weekly average notifications. And so then a failure occurred, a warning, occurred for the weekly average along about following fraction 35. The physician was notified concerning these alerts. And here you can see, for example, the predicted versus the measured profiles for the first failing beam, which occurred during fraction 35. The ARC4 gamma map showed a hotter area, which is well highlighted in these X and Y profile maps. These hotter dose regions show changes in patient anatomy, possibly due to weight loss and tumor regression. The original plan was discontinued, and after evaluation, a boost was added based on a new CT, which spared surrounding healthy tissue. The physician was able to increase the daily dose from 2.5 gray to 3 gray because of the smaller planning target volume on the new CT scan. The next case study, I'll open this one up in Adaptivo, the software, a bit later, but wanted to finish on through the case studies right now. So remember this case and we'll look at it in more detail. So it shows a lung plan with the patient misaligned on fraction 18. The adaptive module shows the extent of the misalignment. And in the upper right quadrant of my screen, you can see the merged CT in green and the planning CT in red. The tumor offset between the planned and the daily position is clearly seen. The two lower images show the planned dose on the planning CT on the lower left and the lower right graph I think is most interesting. It shows, again, the planning CT and the planning structures with the deformed dose mapped from the daily merge CT. And so one can see, reviewing these structures, the shift in the delivered dose on fraction 18. So for this case, the cumulative DVH and the daily DVH for fraction 18 are shown. This one's cumulative, this one's daily. And one can see the large differences in the daily DVH, but the cumulative DVH up to and including the misaligned fraction 18 shows much less impact when reviewing to determine if action should be taken. And now the physician has the information to determine whether a single day's misalignment compromises the patient's overall treatment. The next case study is again reviewed using the adaptive module. And so this is a head and neck case. And as is common, the patient lost weight during treatment and the mask was poorly made. And so daily setup was inconsistent. The effects of these changes are tracked in Adaptivo, with the lower left graph showing decreasing target volume as a function of the delivered fraction, significant dose differences between the planned and cumulative delivered dose can be viewed in the dose difference map in the upper right corner. The lower right corner shows the DVH differences between planned and delivered cumulative dose. Again, in this case, Adaptivo provides the information needed by the physician to make informed treatment decisions. So now I'll go ahead and bring the Adaptivo software over to the screen. And so here you can see the dashboard that I've been talking about. For this particular setup that I have, we have 3 patients that have active alerts. I'm not a very good physicist, so I haven't been keeping up with my alerts. This particular patient has 7, 2, and 1. And if you want to open up, you can see more detail associated with which fractions and if those are worn or fail and what the alerts are. Again, I wanted to then show you over here on the dashboard that I have. These are the chiclets that I've been talking about. So these 3 patients that I'm showing now have had both the in vivo module computed as well as the adaptive module. So you can see here the regions of interest that are having notifications, as well as from the cone beam CT and associated 3D dose computations, as well as the in vivo related measured versus predicted or measured portal doses versus the reference fraction. So I'm going to go deeper into, let's see, patient number 2 for this lung case. And what I can do is I can just go directly into this region and look deeper into what's going on with this patient. We see here from the chiclets that on about, let's see, fraction 36, that there is a failure. So we'll look in that area. And so it takes me right into this particular patient. We can see the daily DVHs. Right now it's showing for the last fraction since this treatment was completed, so fraction 39. I can go to any of the fractions from the chiclets that we had seen. Fraction 36 looked like a good fraction to review. And so what you can see here is that clearly there was a large variation that occurred on fraction number 36, but you can see, as I showed in the previous slides, that the cumulative dose uh, uh, is, shows a reasonable comparison. As well, we can, look at the trends. For example, in any of the particular regions of interest that we want to review. You can go in, for example, within the software, you can go in and acknowledge these messages, at which case they will have a green check mark, provide comments, and then go ahead and review specific trending. I'd also like to show you our viewers, because most people find those pretty intriguing. And they really go a long way to show what's going on with the patient. So, for example, this is the cumulative dose difference, and you can see that all looks well for the cumulative dose. But then if I bring up and one can, of course, cursor through and look at, different slices through in the three different directions. But what I would like to show you is the daily comparisons, because that's what was most interesting. And I have this viewer opened up to fraction 36, which was the fraction that we had seen the notifications for, as well as the red chiclet in the portal dosimetry comparison. But here you can see exactly what happened and where the dose differences lie. So this is the deformed dose mapped back to the planning CT, and you can see the planned versus the deformed dose for fraction 36. And of course, it's shown next to the plan ROIs, so you can see where the dose map cloud should have been shown. As well, I'm not sure if I showed in the slide, in the previous slides, the merged versus the plan CT. And so what you can see is that the green is the merged, and the red is the plan. And of course, as with the other viewers, you can cursor through, you can go to the different fractions as well, using page up, page down. And so you can see as well how the dose cloud looks between fractions and on different slices or different cuts through your CT image. And so I think I've taken up a good amount of your time now, so I will go ahead and move on to completing the presentation. And so, in summary, one can adapt to changes in radiotherapy using either the in vivo or adaptive modules of Adaptivo. The in vivo module measures using EPID images. Tools that one uses are reviewing repeated daily gamma analysis alerts and weekly gamma analysis alerts, so the daily and the weekly. Further review can be achieved using beam and fraction gamma pass rates, gamma maps, profiles, and trends of the gamma pass rate for each beam. The adaptive module provides tools to set up custom automated alerts based on daily and cumulative DVH changes. One can review these alerts further using trend plots for each ROI, scrolling through side-by-side plan, daily and cumulative 3D doses on the patient CT, and review daily and cumulative DVHs. And so thank you for your time and attention. That concludes my presentation. So if you haven't done so, you can go ahead and type questions into the GoToMeeting dialog box, and I'll go ahead and open that up and see if we have any questions today. I'm not seeing any questions in the dialog box, so I'll give you just another moment and then I'll close the webinar. So here's a question. So how do you use in vivo for a Vmat plan? So it's I think no different than for an IMRT plan. I was using the term beam, but you can go ahead and review each arc, for example. So you will see the cumulative measurement, the measured versus predicted as for the cumulative as well as each arc for Vmat. We are, have discussed different options like looking at a more granular detail, but at this point in time, it is arc-based. The next question, is it available for tomotherapy? Not at this time. And another question has come in. I see your calc is based on CBCT images. I need to make this a little larger. When one uses a poor irradiation protocol, is your calculation correct? So you do need to use, I guess, caution, or you need to use appropriate protocols. And then based on those protocols, there is a matching of the density from the plan CT is what I think that you are referring to. So based on the CT, the CT values from the plan are transformed over to the CBCT. And so that's taken into account. And if you'd like, I can go ahead and send you the publications describing that method in a bit more detail if you would like. And I am not seeing any other questions. So unless I've missed some in the question dialogue, I think that that's everything. All right, so thank you very much for listening and have a great day.